Right. In today's lesson, we are going to look at how we can handle data in different ways, or you can say different structures available for handling data. We call data structures. So when it comes to Python, there are four built-in data structures, which means these four data structures can be readily available when you install Python. So those four data structures are lists, tuples, dictionaries, and sets. So we are going to discuss all these four. But most of the time, if you comfortable with using list and dictionaries, that would be enough for most of the tasks. So let's start with the lists data structure. So in list data structure, what we are going to do is you can store a sequence of objects. But these are, we call it as ordered collections. So we can say you can specify an order. And the next thing in Python, usually Python uses various different brackets for different data structures. In lists, it uses square brackets. So you use square brackets to order a collection of items. You can have it in a list structure. And once you create it, you can modify the way you want. You can add, you can remove, you can search for anything, and even you can sort, right? Or even you can delete it. Therefore, this data structure list we call mutable data type, right? So I think now I'll explain it using a simple example. For this particular example, I'm actually using I'm actually using numbers. Although I have used numbers, you can use anything. As I said, it's a collection of items. Okay, let me switch it to Python shell. Right. So the first task, as I told you earlier, is the list representation. So as I told you earlier, in Python, we are using square bracket. So this is empty list. So you can have a list of items. You can comma separate them. Usually we use comma to separate various different items. Although I have used numbers, you can use strings, you can use other documents, you can use videos, anything you want, right? We can put it as a list. So here we have a set of numbers, right? And this is how we are representing. So in this particular list, we have 5 numbers. And let me give you a name for this. I will say, okay, this is number list. Right. So now we created a list of numbers, and then we stored in a variable name number list. So if you want to print what is inside, you can say number list, right? At the same time, if you use our type, if you use print type number list, you can notice that this is a list data structure. So you can see it says class list and it's list data structure. And then you will have a set of numbers. You can also, since this is, you have a sequence of numbers, you can easily use a for loop to iterate. For example, let's say I can say for I in number list. So what happens here, since you have a sequence of items, right? You have a set, list of items here. You can take one at a time. And for example, I can print it. So what happens here then, it will take number 11 first, then 2, then 23, then 45, then 50. So that's why I said you have an ordered collection of numbers. Right. Now that we have learned how to create a list and then we print it out, next look at other properties. So as I discussed early, you can use type, and then we can get how many items inside. So for that, you can use len function, which we have learned early. Len will give you a length of an object. So in this particular case, we have a list of numbers. So if you say print len number list, and you can notice that it will give us number 5, which means that, okay, you have 5 items inside the list. Okay, so that's about creating a list of numbers and print it out, getting other information. Okay, now I told you in the beginning that this is an ordered collection of items, which means in our case, we have ordered a number list. So you should be able to access this. Now, this part we need to understand. Now, what we need to understand here is when you want to access the list of numbers. So we have 11, that is our first number. Then we have 2, then we have 23, then we have 45, then we have 15, right? Now, in Python, we use index to identify the order. Now, in our case, if we use index to represent, and in Python programming language, index start with 0. So the first number, the index is 0. So index can be used to refer each of these individual objects, in our case, numbers. So the index 0 can be used to refer number 11. So likewise, for number 2, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now that we have learned how to use or access element using the index, now we can discuss how to access individual elements. So for example, if I want to access the first element, I can say, okay, print, we have number list, and within square bracket, you will specify the index. So, which means that, again, if I write it down, when you want to access number 11, what you need to do is we have to say, okay, number list, that is the list variable, and then we use square bracket to specify the index value. That 0 is the index. So by doing so, you can access any element, right? So the first value we can access using, okay, number list 0. So for example, the last one, can you tell me like how to access it? So we can go for index 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the last one. So we can say, okay, number 4, which will give you number 15. Okay. So this is the index. So you can access, any item now. So now that we have learned how to access the whole list and access each individual item in a list, now let me explain how to insert items. Now I told you in list data structure, after you create it, you can add, right? So let me explain that part now. In list data structure, you can add items most commonly 2 ways. One is at the end of the list. So if you want to add item to the end of the list, we have what we call the append method. So we can say number list dot append. And let's say I want to add 29 at the end of the list. So if you do this, and let's print the number list, you will notice now the number 29 is added as the last item, right? So the summary is, if you want to add some items to the end of the list, we can use append method. Right. Next, if you want to add something in the middle, then we have insert method, right? Append method will add to the end. If you want to add something in the middle, then we have to use insert. Now, when you're using insert function, again, remember, you have to, if you want to use a particular method, you can always go to help. So, for example, if you want to know everything about list, you can type help list, which will give you help about the list. So if you click it, let me remove the comments that I have made earlier. You can see it will give you the help on list classes and also all the methods available. Right now we discuss about append. Right now, what I'm going to explain is to insert method, right? Okay, so I will take only the insert, so you can use list dot insert, which will give you only the insert method. So as you can see in the help, insert, you can use the index and you can specify the object. For the time being, let's forget about the self part, which I will cover under the topic of object orientation. But right now, let's see that you need an index and the object where you have to specify where you want to insert the value. Right. Now, let me get my original list. Okay, this is my list. So let's say that I want to add, right? I want to add 20 as the second item. So this is 0 and this is the index. This is 1. So I want to add 20 as the second item. So after this one, so that means whatever I'm going to add here, that is right now I'm thinking of adding 20 as the index 1, right? So therefore I have to say number list dot insert 1 comma 20, right? I have to add 20 as the index 1 as the second item, okay? So if I go back, right? Let me say, I will say, okay, number list dot insert, yes, 1 comma 20. And if you say print number list, okay, now you can notice that I have added 20 as the second item. Right. To answer my question, to add 3 as the third item, as I told you earlier, we have to first specify the index. So I have to add 3 as a third item. So the index is 2. The value is 3, right? So this should be the correct answer. And then when I say, okay, so according to my list, this will be the outcome. Right. Now that we have learned how to add items and we edit, we discuss how to insert and then we append it and then we use the insert. Right. Next. how do we change the values? So whenever you want to change values, right? First you can access it and then you can make assignment, right? So what do you mean by that? Access it. Now, when I say, let's say I want to change the second item. So what is the index value? This, when you say second value, the index is 1, right? Okay. So for example, let's say I want to change the second value. What is the second value? Um, that is right now 20, right? So let me say I want to change it to 200. So for example, I can say, okay, number list, second item, right? Then the index is 1. So when you just press it, you can notice it's 20 now. So let's make a new assignment. So we'll say equals 200. Now what happens? Yes, this will get updated. Now you can notice that we have 200. Okay, we have 200. Okay, right, good. Now that we have learned how to insert, how to change, right? Let me discuss about the sorting. So let's take help list.sort. We have used sort method, and you can notice here how to use sort. In this particular case, you can see sort. You have a figure called reverse false, right? Let me explain what this reverse flag is. If you want to sort, so you can say that right now our number list is like this. And let's sort it. We use the number list dot sort. And then when you say sort, and if you print it, observe that this will sort the numbers according to the ascending order, right? So all the numbers are sorted in ascending order, right? Similar to that, if you need descending order, the reverse flag is very, very important. If you read the documentation, it says the reverse flag can be set to sort in descending order. So when I say set, there is a flag. So what we are going to do within this, we will say now the default value is reverse is false. So I will say reverse equals true. So when I say reverse true, and then if you read, if you print the number list again, and you can notice that the numbers are sorted in descending order. Okay, right. Now that we have learned insert, change, and also sort, let me explain removing items. Now, if you want to remove items, right, what we need to do is, there are two techniques. We can use del, which we stand for delete. So we can use del, and you can use index to specify which item. Right, now it's like this. We say del number list. And then you specify which number you want to remove. So let's say I want to remove the first number. So what should be the value? Yes, I want to remove the first number. The index is 0, right? So if I put 0, and if you print it again, you will notice that I have removed the first number, right? And then we have left with this set of numbers. Okay, good. Similarly, you can remove numbers based on the value. In del uh, keyword we use, we delete the number based on the index, which means a location, right? So then what you need to remember about this is del will delete based on the location. The next one is we can remove based on value. So the command is remove. For example, let's say I want to remove 29. So the command is, I can say number list dot remove, and then I will put 29. And then if I print the number, you can notice the 29 is removed. But remember that if you have like more than one value, it will remove the first item, right? So for example, let me add something as, okay, let me add 23 at the end. So how do you add 23 at the end? I can say number list dot append. I can add 23. So if you print the numbers, now you know there are 2 23s. So if you use a remove method to remove 23, and if you see, you will notice that it will remove the first item. So make a note of this. If you're using remove method, and if you have more than one value, it will remove the first one, right? It will remove the first one. Okay, last one. If you want to delete everything, that means let's say you finish everything, you can just delete the number list, right? And if you try number list again, it says that it's not defined, which means we have completely removed the number list. Okay, any questions on this? Just to summarize what we discuss under list is we discuss how list can be used to have an ordered set of items. And then we discussed how to add items, how to modify items, how to delete items, right? And that's what we have discussed here. And just to summarize, this is not the whole list of method. You can use the help to get the full list of list methods, but these are the commonly used one in my discussion, right? So let's start with a small exercise. Okay, so in this one, we are going to look at what we have in something like a shopping list. So therefore, I will say, okay, I'm going to create a list called shopping list, and then I have set of items. We have apple, mango, carrot, and banana, right? Okay, so we can print the length. We say length shopping list, and then we know we have 4 items. You can print the list, whatever the values we have. And then let's add the rice. So we can say shopping list dot append. It doesn't say where to add it, so you can add, let's say, using append. If you want to insert in a particular position, you can use insert. Let's sort. Please note that in this particular case, it'll sort in ascending order. So you will get apple, then banana, then carrot, we have mango, and finally we have rice. You can print only the first item, which we have to use the index value. And let's remove the first item. You can use del shopping list if you want to remove something based on the location, and then finally you can print it. Okay, I think it's not that difficult. So, and thanks for sharing your answers as well. So let's move to the note again. Right, now that we have used about the list, and Python list can also contain other lists. So let me explain list of list, or we call it nested list. So nested lists are useful, and actually Python supports the mixed data types within the list. So in this particular example, I will explain how we can have multiple the values or mix data inside the tuple, the list. So first one, in this one, we are creating a new list. This time I'm going to use my shopping list, and you can use that it's empty list. So why we call it empty list? If you want, you can just check my length of my shopping list, and you can notice that, okay, length is 0. Now let's add something new. So this time I'm going to store item together with the quantity that I want to purchase, for example. So therefore, I will say something like, okay, my shopping list dot append. And you can notice that here I will put a list. The first value, I will use what items I want to purchase. And the second, I will say quantity. So you see, the first one is a text string data type, and the second one is the integer data type. So, okay, so there was a error in my code. Okay, and then if you print it, you will notice that, okay, I have a list, and within the list, now I have another list, right? So in similar way, I can add, let's say, 7 oranges. So I will say, I will take the same code and modify. Let's say I have another item, let's say orange. And let's say I have 7 items. Okay, so if you print it, now you notice that I have 2 items. I have to purchase, it's like my shopping list now. I need to purchase, 5 apples, and then there's 7 oranges. Right. Now, let's say that, okay, I have to first access number of items. So you can follow the same technique that we have discussed earlier. Let's say now we have 2 items, 2 lists within another list. So for example, if you want to access the first list, you can say, okay, print shopping list 0. So what happens? You actually access the first item, and the first item is a list. So if you want to access within the item, you can follow the same technique. We can say, okay, I need to access the first item within this list. So 0 will access the first list, and then within the list, we will access the 0, that is the first item. So if you want to access 5, for example, the number, then you go to the second item. So that is 0 and 1. Right. Okay, so this will get number 5. So let's say that, okay, I have prepared the shopping list. 5 apples and the 7 oranges. But later I thought, okay, I need 7 apples. So what if now I have to change 5 to 7? So now we know how to access 5. So let's update. Let's make a new assignment. So I will say, okay, my shopping list, we have 0 and 1. And I will say it's 7. And the list updates. Now, if you print the shopping list again, now I have updated my shopping list. Now I'm going to purchase 7 apples and 7 oranges. Okay, so in this small example, what I want to highlight is one list can contain mixed data items. We have noticed that we have string as well as int. You can have any different data items. And then you can have lists within the list, right? So that's very important, which we call nested list. Actually, since you guys work in mathematics, there's a real use of this as well. Um, uh, actually, the one way to represent matrices, for example, is as nested list. So you can notice in this particular example that we have a 3 by 3 list where we have items 1 to 9. And what we can do is you can use the list representation where we will use each row as a list, right? And then we can use the same technique that we have discussed. So let me go through this again. So for example, I will say matrix, and then I will use a list. And within that, I have 3 rows, right? So I will use 3 lists. And then the items in the first list, items in the first row in the first list, items in the second row in the second list, and the items in the third row in the third list. So doing so, we know this will not actually show it as a matrix where 3 by 3 form. And later on, we will discuss how exactly some of the packages will show you exactly as a matrix form. But this is useful. Now, for example, if you want to access the first row, we can use matrix 0, which will give you the first row of elements. Similar to that, if you want to access second row, then you can use this. Third row, you can use this. Okay, right. And then, for example, if you want to access elements within the list, that can be also done. For example, let's say I want to access the very first element in the first list. So first you access the first row, saying matrix 0. And within that, let's say I want to access the first item, then I will put 0 like this. So which will access the very first element in the matrix. Similar to that, if you want to access the last element, you go to the third row and then third item, which will give you 9. So which means if you want to access the middle element, okay, you have to go to second row and then second item. And this is what we get. Right. Okay, just to summarize what we have discussed under this, we were discussing about the data structures, different ways of storing data. We discuss or we complete the list data structure where we can create a ordered set of items, and once you create it, you can insert, you can update, you can delete. And this will also support list of lists, which we call nested list. Okay, let's move to the next one. Our next data structure. Before we move on, if you have any questions. Okay, let's continue our discussion. The next data structure we are going to discuss is called tuples. Again, it's similar to list. This is an ordered collection of items. And one difference is we are using normal brackets, we call rounded brackets, right? Remember, in list, we use square brackets. So if you use rounded brackets in the same way, if you comma separate the items, it's called a tuple. But one thing you need to remember, once you create the tuple, you cannot do any changes to this. So after creating it, you cannot add new items, you cannot change any items, or you cannot delete individually. You can actually delete the whole one, but not individual items. Therefore, tuples we call immutable data type, right? Immutable data type. Right. So let's look at an example. So for that, I'm going to use a very similar example that we have discussed with list as well. Right. So let me start. So in this particular case, we are going to look at how we can create a tuple. So I'm going to use the same example where I will use the same list of numbers as a tuple. So I will use a new variable, we'll say number tuple, and then we'll say, okay, we have set of values, right? Okay, and then you print this and it will print it as it is, right? And similar to that, you can use a for loop in the same way. In each iteration, it takes one number at a time, and we are printing it. Right, good. And then if you want to find the length, so you can use print and the length. Okay, we can say, okay, print length. So it says that, okay, there are 5 elements inside. Right. And you can check type as well. If you say type number tuple, you can notice that it says, okay, I have made a mistake. It says class tuple. Right. Okay. Now remember that since we discussed that you cannot make any changes, we cannot do anything much. Sometimes we say that this is very similar to read-only list. You create a list of items, and then nobody can change the values inside. But you can access individual element from the similar fashion. For example, if you want to access the first item, we can use index. So therefore, let's say we want to access the first element. We can say, okay, number tuple, and then we can say 0, which will we can access the first a number, that is 11. Right. And finally, we have to delete, you can say del number tuple, which will delete the whole tuple here. So if you just try to print it, now it says this is not defined. So I hope now it is clear to you that how we can actually define a tuple. And then once you define, I told you, you cannot do anything, but you can access. And finally, we deleted the whole tuple. Any question on this? Okay, good. So let's move to the next one then. So let's quickly summarize what we discussed. I'll go back to my slides. So as we have discussed, we discussed how we can create a tuple, print a tuple, and then getting characteristics like length, and then accessing elements, and finally deleting the tuple. These are like some of the methods available in the tuple. For example, we have not discussed methods like count. You can use it to count how many times a particular value occurs. And then you can use index to return the first index of a value. You can search and you can get the first index. Len we discussed, del we have discussed. Okay, if you go to help, you can learn more about the tuple methods. Right. Let's move to the next data structure. In the next data structure, we'll call unique. You can store unique items, which similar to the sets in maths as well, right? It's very similar. And there's no order. We call it unordered collection. So although we discuss about the order in last two cases in the list and the tuples, in sets, it doesn't define any order. So it's random actually. The next one, it uses curly brackets. Remember, list uses square brackets, tuple uses round brackets, and here we use curly brackets, right? And there's no index because you don't have a what do you call, there's no order, so there's no index for this. You cannot change items, but you can add items, right? Okay, so let's see with an example how sets work. So in this particular example, let me say number set, and then I will use curly brackets. And then let me list the same numbers as we have used earlier. Right. And if you look at, if you want to print it, you can use the same technique we have used earlier. You can use number sets, and you can use a for loop. And you have a print type, okay? And which will print each individual elements. Yes. Yes, you can use the len, which will give you the number of elements. And if you use type, it will say it's a set. It says actually class set. Right. Okay. Now I told you one thing here, you cannot change, but you can add items. So let me use two techniques, adding one element and adding multiple elements. So for example, if I want to add 6, right? What will happen? One thing note, by which I actually forget. So we define the number is like this. And when it printed, it's a different order. So there's no order actually specified. So let me use adding a new, and then let's print it. So I'm adding 6, and then let me print it. You can notice the 6 is added, but the order is not important and it's arbitrary. Let me add again, and it's unique. So nothing changed here, right? No duplicates. But there's another method we call update, where you can add multiple values. So I will use update, and then I will have a list of numbers. You can notice that in this technique, we can add multiple items at the same time. So we update with the 6, 7, 8, but 6 is already there. So it's update 7 and 8, and the set is updated. right? Okay, now we have discussed creating a set, printing a set, getting characteristics, and adding items. Right. Okay, you can remove the items. What I told is you cannot change items, but you can remove the items as well. But when you're removing, you have to be very careful. You cannot use index here because index is not defined. So there's a method. There are actually two methods you can use. For example, let's use one. We have a method called remove, and it will use a value. So let me say I'm going to remove the number 2. So I can put it like this, right? And I will print it. Okay, 2 is not anymore. If you try to remove 2 again, it will complain because there's no 2, right? So there it will be error. So you can use remove as far as the value is there. If the value is not there, it will break it. So you have to be careful. Or else there's another method called discard. So let me take the same set of numbers and I'm going to explain using remove. Let's remove 6. It says discard. So I will say, okay, number set dot discard. I will say 6. And you can notice that the 6 is gone. And if you try to discard it again, you will see there's no issue. It will not complain even if the value is not there. So if you have a situation where you have to remove and you don't really worry about whether the item is in the list, in the set or not, right? Then you can use it. So remember that you depend on your requirement, you have to use these techniques. The final one, you can remove the whole set. We can say, okay, del set. And then if you try to print it now, this time it says it's not defined. Okay, so that's the third one, which we have discussed today. So we started with the list, then tuples, and then sets. Okay, so we discuss 3 data structures: lists, tuples, and then sets, right? So let's move on to the next one. But let me share the slides first. Okay, what we have discussed about the sets, sets can be used to create unique set of items. It's an unordered collection, which means that you cannot use index here. You can add items, but you cannot update, and you can remove. And to remove, actually, we discuss 2 techniques. So that's what we discuss about the sets. So here are some set methods: add, discard, and lend. And actually, you can use help set, and you can use set and method if you want to change, if you want to get more information about the set methods. Okay, good. Let's move on. The last data structure we are going to discuss for today is dictionaries. Again, very important. Now, if you look back, list and the tuples, we use index. Index is a numerical value you use to indicate the position. But when we have a very lengthy list or a tuple, if you want to access exactly a particular item, it will be very difficult. So therefore, in dictionaries, we use keys for that, right? So the idea of this is in dictionaries, you have two parts. You have keys and you have values, right? Keys like an index, but we are using, key value, and it's easy to remember. So that's why it's called a dictionary. You know what happens in the dictionary? You have one side, you have words in one language, and then maybe the other side there will be another language. Likewise, you can have, or you can say, you have a definition, the word, and then you have a definition. So it's matched the keys to the values. So that's the idea that we are going to discuss it here. Okay, to explain this one, I will take a toy example. And for that, actually, I will use, mapping between the English language and the Japanese language. Right, so let's do the exercise. Let me start with that. Okay, so it's similar to previous one. You have a name. I'm going to use number dictionary. And then remember, I'm using square brackets, curly brackets. In curly brackets, as I told you, there are two parts. So therefore, I have to say it like this. I will have two parts. First, I have a key, and then you have a value. So what I'm specifying here, in one side, your left-hand side, you have keys. Right-hand side, you have values. So I'm using English to Japanese. So one and ichi. And then you have, let's say, two. Then right-hand side, ni. And then let's say three, we have san. Right, that's all. And this is how we define the dictionary. So in dictionaries, always we have two parts, keys and values, whereas in other data structures, what we have discussed, we have only values only, right? Okay, now printing will be the same. But if you use for loop, there are some differences. So if you print it as a whole, you see both key and value pairs. Actually, you could have typed in a single line like this. I actually break into multiple pieces to understand. Right. But if you use a for loop, now there's a small difference, right? So what we used to use earlier for I in number date. And then within that, we will say, okay, print I. And in this, if you use this fashion, what happens now, it will print only the keys. Keys means what is in your left-hand side. So the three key values we have is 1, 2, 3. Okay, if you need the right-hand side, those are values. So you need to update this. So you have to say number dict values. And if you update like this, then it will give you a right-hand side. But remember, we have keys and values we call items. So if you need items, then you have to specify. You have to say that, okay, you need items. Sorry. So you will get both keys and value pairs. So I hope now it is clear that how to create a dictionary. In dictionary, we have to have both keys and value pairs. Printing using a for loop, there are slight differences. If you just use print as earlier, you will get only the keys. If you use values, then you will get only the values. If you need both keys and value pairs, then you use items. I hope now it is clear how we use or handle dictionaries. Now, if you need characteristic like the length, you can try the same. We can use len, and then you can give the name of the dictionary. And in our case, we have 3 items and it says 3. And if you say type, this time it says this is class dictionary, it says dict. Now, accessing is an interesting one, which I think where you will understand why we have key value pairs. Now, remember in lists, we have used 0 to access the first element, then 1 to access the second element. But here we can use keys. So if you want to access the first value, we say number dictionary, and then you will say 1, right? And then you get corresponding value for key 1. So we can use keys now. It's like in a database, you have a field where you are going to exact a particular information. For example, if I need address, I can say address and it will provide me the address, right? So that's the idea. So in some programming languages, we can say this is like a hash table, right? Okay, there's another method that you can do the same. There's a method called get method. I could say print number dictionary dot get, and then 1 is the keyword to get the value for key 1. So it's itchy. Right, now can you tell me if I want to get the right third item, so what should be the command? If you want to get the third item, we know that we have to say, let me say print number dict, then let's say 3. So you get the third element, right? Okay, I think we can move to the next one, which we can discuss how we can add items. Now, let's say I want to add the item number 4, right? So let me see number dictionary, and then I want to add 4. And then you provide a value. So let me put yon here. And if you print it, and you can notice that now we have 4 elements, right? And then you can check if you want. If you use 4, it's on. So this is the technique that we have used to add elements to a dictionary. We define the key together with the value. In actually Japanese, there are 2 representations for number 4. So for example, if I need the second representation, what should I do? I can use the same assignment and I can provide the new value. So let's say I'm going to say she. Now what happens? If you print it, you will notice that it's she, right? You can double check by just printing only the key for the 4th item, right? To get the value for the fourth item, we say number dict and 4. And you now notice that we are getting she here. Okay, last one. How to remove items. Right, now nothing different from what we have done earlier. You can use del here, but here you have to specify which key you want to delete. Right. So I will give you as an exercise for you. So the last one, what we ask is how to remove the key 2. So in our case, we have 4 items and then we will delete. So that the Python keyword we have to use is a del keyword, and we have to say number dictionary, and then we specify the key which will delete it. Right. So let's summarize what we have discussed, and let me share the slides. Right. So in this one, we discuss how dictionaries work. We use curly brackets, but we have to have 2 items, keys, and value pairs. And then after that, we discuss how to print the list items. And then we also discuss how to add items and how to delete items. If you need more information about the dictionaries, you can always use a help dict. And then if you need a particular method, you can use help dot the method name. Right. So let's move on to the last part of today's discussion. So in this one, what we discuss is strings, and also with the strings, I'm going to discuss there's a slice operation which we can use for other data structures as well. Strings you can notice as a sequence of characters, and therefore you can use index to get the position of particular character. But the difference is strings are immutable, that you cannot change what is inside. So having said that, I'm going to use this is to introduce you backward indexing. So far we discussed about only the forward indexing. So let me take a simple example where we have S, the name for a particular string, and let's say we have word dialog. And when we have this, we know index can be used to access each individual characters. So the 0 can be used to represent character T, then 1 for I, 2 for A, 3 for L, 4 for O, and 5 for G, and so on. So if you want to access individual characters, you can just say 0, which gives you the access to the D. Right. Now, interestingly, you can also work in backwards. And this can be applied for the data structures that we have discussed earlier as well. So in backward indexing, start with -1. So -1 indicates the last element, which is very useful. For example, let's say you have a data set where you want to immediately access the last column, and we can just simply use -1 to access that particular column, which is very interesting. So backward indexing is also very useful. So therefore, you should be familiar with both forward indexing as well as backward indexing. So let me look at this example. Let's go back to the shell. So I told you we are using S, the string dialog, and then you can print it. And the type of this is a string, right? So that part we are clear about it. Now, what we are trying to explain here is forward indexing. I know that the first character can be accessed using S0 or S0, which is you use the index. And if you use the backward indexing, it'll be -6, right? Similar to that, if you want to access the last one in forward indexing, it's 5, but you can use S minus 1. So therefore, depending on what you need to access, you can choose between forward indexing and backward indexing, and very, very useful. Okay, now let me use the same idea for slice strings. What do you mean by slicing? You can take substring, part of this. For example, what I'm going to explain you now is use of slice operation. So slicing means you can go like this. For example, since we have a string stored it as S, what we could use is we can say S, and then we can have three values, up to three values. You can have start, then stop, then you can have step in slicing. Similar to what we have discussed in range function, for example, same thing. So you can use this and remember what we have in between is a colon, not the comma. So you can use colons, right? Let me explain one at a time. Now, given that you know this, let me explain now. Let's take start and stop. So let's say we want to get uh, 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 the first four elements, right? Let's say first four elements. So that means in dialog, we have dial, right? D-I-A-L, first four elements. So if you want to get first four elements, this is how we can use a slicing operation. We can say S, starting point is 0, that means start, and the stop. We know stop is, we have first four characters, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Goes up to 4. Remember the notation that we have used earlier as well. In range function is also same. So this is like 0 to 4, but not including 4. The last element not there. Therefore, you have 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Which is that. So make a note of this. But interestingly, when you have 0, the starting position, you don't have to specify. So therefore, if you want to get the first four elements, you can simply say colon 4. And colon 4 means the starting value will be 0, right? So for example, if you want to access first 5 elements, just put 5. So make a note of this. Again, very, very important when you're working with the data sets and all. For example, if you want to access the first four rows or first four columns, you can use this notation. Right. I hope this is clear to you. Is it clear to you? Any question? Okay, then let me move on. Similar to that, we can go backwards as well. Let's say we want to access, now this is from the beginning. Let's say I want to start in the middle of a string and then I want to access the up to the last element, right? So let me say I want to start from index 3, right? What is index 3? D is for the index 0. 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 start with L, right? So let's say we want to start with, let's say 3, goes up to 6. That is the last element. We'll get locked, right? So if you have a situation like this, if you specify the start value and end is until the end, you don't have to specify like this. 6 is the last element. So the last element you don't have to specify. When you say 3 colon, right? It means that we are going to access starting from index 3. So the two operations, I hope now it is familiar for you. If you put a colon and a 4, it means you start from up to 4th one. And if you say 3 colon, it goes from 3 to the end, right? Therefore, can you guess, if I print this one, what is the outcome? So this is to say that it's from start to end. So if you have 0 and 6, we know we print every, oh sorry, I forgot to put the brackets. So this is everything, right? So when you go from start to end, even you can use this. This is not very common usage, so you don't have to use this. But for your reference, if you just see colon, so what it means that it's everything from start to end. So it will print the whole string in this particular case. Right. Okay. Good point. And then let's move on. Next, we are going to look at it three values. So if you have three values, it's specify start, stop, and a step. So let me give you an example. So let's say we have something like this: print s. We have 3, 6, and 2. Can you guess what happens here? So what happens? We have dialogue. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So the starting value is 3. Start is 3. Then stop is 6. Step is 2. So you start with this one, right? And step is the next one, right? Usually, if you do not specify the third value, it means it's 1, like similar to range functions. So that means after 3, then plus 2, that's 5, right? 3 plus 2, then it's G. And after that, 5 plus 2, that is 7. It's not in the range. So therefore, you should get LG, right? Let's try. Okay, let me give one more example. Right. Can you give me the answer for this? We have 0, 6, 2. Yes. Okay, if I go back, thanks, I get one answer. So if I remove these, so let me start. It says it goes from 0 to 6, start to the end with a step of 2, right? So start means we start with here. Step is 2, then 0, 2, and 4, right? Okay, good. I think now you understand this. But what is very important is this representation. So since we have a start and stop, you can just remove this and then you get the same answer. So make a note of this. Simply, we can make use of this notation. Okay, are we clear about this? Yes? Okay, let's move on. So similar to that, we can say if you just put one, we know it will print the whole thing. So when everything is default values, you don't have to specify. So similar to what we have discussed earlier, if you have two columns like this, it says that it's everything, right? Make a note of this. Okay, right, good. Let's move on. Uh, well, next thing that I'm going to discuss is in the backward indexing, right? Uh, Now, can you tell me what is the output of this? I will say something like this. Print s -1, -7, and -1. Yes. So this is backward indexing, right? Remember backward indexing? We have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. Same, right? -1 started from here to -7. So that means a whole string in other way around, right? Descending order. So make a note of this representation as well, because it goes from start to the end. Okay, with that said, we'll conclude today's session. We don't have time for the quiz, but next time I'll have a quiz which covers from everything from day one. So make sure that you practice and come for the next quiz. Thank you, guys. Let's finish for today then. Thank you.